Indra. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4. Rishi, Madhuchandas Vaishwamitra. Devata, Indra. Chandas, Gayatri. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 1.
Rupakratramutaye sudukhaviv goduhe juhomasidya vidyavi.
We call upon the maker of beautiful forms for assistance, like a good milch cow to a milker, day by day. The gods lead us to a status greater than their own. The repeated mention of a milch cow denoting knowledge, light, and truth surely alludes to a deep thinking but simple living pastoral society amidst which the Rigveda originated and flourished. Given their deep thinking, their simple living must have been more a choice upon conviction than a compulsion enforced by circumstances. Considering the fact that contemporary science dates the evolution of the extant cattle species to the earliest Holocene epoch, then the premise of the dating being correct, the Vedic age could have been, by a conservative guess, at least 12,000 years ago. However, if the cattle herds spoken of in Vedic hymns refer to a species different from what is extant today, then the Vedic age could be pushed even earlier to a great extent, if corroborated by other independent pointers. But regardless of its antiquity and its likely pastoral moorings, the wisdom of the Vedas are indeed time transcending. The body of each life form is a perfect and precise functional work of art that is totally dependent upon the environment it lives in for its succor and protection. The air it breathes, the light that it visually perceives, the sounds it hears, the food it eats, the space where it resides, are all bestowals of Indra, the regulator, and his associate divinities, who not only provide them, but also regulate their dispensation in just the right measures. The gods couldn't be more kind, but in fact they are, because they bear themselves to be well analyzed and their ways reasonably understood, which handholds and leads their creations, that is us, to someday declare that in principle there is no distinction between the creator and the created. Tat Tvam Asi. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 2.
उपनस्तवनागहि सोमस्य सोमपाः पिब गोदायिद्रेवतो मदाः
To our libations, surely do come near, Soma drinker, do drink Soma entirely for intoxication of the splendid spreading of wisdom. Soma sap extraction and rendition of hymns, functionally similar. The term soma extract, or the pressed out as it is referred to, because soma stalks are pressed between two slabs of hand-held stones to extract its sap, and Vedic hymns that are pressed out of the human body, the sounds generated by rising air from within, Udana Vayu, modulated by the throat, oral cavity, and lips, are visualized to be functionally similar offerings. The third component of any sacrificial offering, which is the intent with which it is offered, is also an extraction like those of soma sap and hymns. Intent is an extract of experiences and discernment. All three being essentially extracts of truth, they can imagined to be appreciated by the gods or natural forces because they themselves are representatives of universal truths. Appreciation of the plant sap offering can be understood in terms of it perhaps promoting the efforts of the atmospheric regulatory system as chemical catalysts or as active ingredients in processes of the atmosphere. But the appreciation of hymns and intent appears to be more an apparent projection of the notions of the mortal mind to the simulated minds of the personified immortals. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 3.
अथाते अन्तमानाम् विद्यामसुमतीनाम् मानो अधिक्य आगहि.
Then do surely come. Let us know of your intimate, correct thoughts. Do not be renowned beyond us. The need to know more, both a boon and a bane. Beseeching Indra to share his intimate, correct thoughts is an admission that mortals may never fully know about the intricacies of nature. The exchanges between mortals and immortals appear to be constrained and deceptive, as well as being open and truthful at the same time. While the immortals strive to expose themselves to mortals only to the extent that is necessary to fulfill their mandate of administration of the universe, mortals attempt to constantly and diligently extort information out of immortals. Perhaps this is an ongoing and eternal endeavor. The need to know more stems from the desire to acquire more of knowledge, wealth, privileges, fame, to become something greater, a propensity peculiar to duality. Mortals do have the option of transcendence, where they may experience all, an ideal state where being and becoming merge. The sense of acquisition is nonsensical, and the urge of need negatory. Is it in the interest of the immortals to allow this to happen, considering their mandate? Perhaps not. And possibly this is the reason that legends abound where gods entice potential seers with material allurements all the while to keep them from transcendence. And the personified Indra, a mortal construct in the domain of duality, is vilified in many of these legends, which only assert the truth that mortality and immortality, even if being the two sides of an imaginary coin, are mutually exclusive and can never exchange sides. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 4.
परे हि विग्रमस्कृतमिन्द्रम् पृच्छामि पस्थितम् यस्ते सखिभ्यावरम्.
Do come towards vigorous, invincible Indra. Ask the wise one, which for all of them friends is surely best. The protection limitation conundrum. More of the deceptive truthfulness here that is seen in the earlier verse, but with the net spread wider, where not only the working principles of Indra, but those of his friends or associated forces governing niche spheres of operations are also targeted and sought to be understood and mastered. There is no wrong in seeking enhanced knowledge per se, but the focus is more on its consequences when applied sans self-abnegation. Given a possibility, there is always an accompanying probability linked to it that has an environmental component too, that makes this probability a variable with time. However small or large the prospect may be, it certainly will cause the possibility to transform into a reality at an opportune time. The universe has an entirely interdependent dynamics, where an irregularity at any point affects its entirety, the resolution of which is the primary task of the immortals. As prudence is surely the first contrivance of a robust regulatory mechanism, Immortals are tasked to reveal only as much of their code of operation to mortals as is necessary to go about with their task. This is another truth revealed by the verse that protection from immortals in this example or from any other protector situation combined that is prevalent in life has an inevitable cost, limitations, and neither protection nor limitation can be avoided. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 5.
उदब्रुवन्तु लोनिरञ्जतश्चिदारत दधानागिन्द्रजिद्दुवाः.
And let mockers tell us, go away somewhere else, you whose possessions and activities indeed in Indra. Inevitability of opposing alternatives. This is yet another truth of life and a conspicuous trait of duality, perhaps not generally seen as such, and hence can be said to be revealed. For every compliment there will always be a censure, for every connoisseur a mocker, for every deva an asura, and the eternal tussle between them for supposed supremacy, both as essential as the other for the universal playbook, which is another perspective of the protection-limitation conundrum dwelt upon in the earlier verse. This truth expresses itself as the feature of cyclicality of processes across the universe, reciprocity of exchanges, and the inevitability of opposing alternatives. The Vedic legend of Samudra Manthanam illustrates this notion in its completeness. The churning motion representing cyclicality, the Devas and Asuras causing it with their reciprocal efforts, and the myriad objects that appear out of the ocean of truth, some perceived as good and some not, indicating the inevitability of opposing alternatives. This truth is so pervasive that it masquerades even as a frivolous piece of entertainment, as in the Urdu language Bollywood film song, whose lyrics go thus: Kismat ki hawa kabhi garam, kabhi naram garam. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 6.
उदनः सुभगा गरिर्वोचेयर्दस्मकृष्टजाः स्यामेदिन्द्रस्य शर्मणि.
The pious and the learned announce us perfectly blissful, extraordinary doer, let us truly be in happiness of Indra. ability of gods and frailty of mortals. In the guise of extolling Indra, the propensities of the mortal mind are analyzed threadbare in verses of this Suktam. Interdependence between objects and systems of the universe is not merely confined to the material realm. They also cover the mental realm. There is total freedom from this interdependence only in the spiritual realm, where being conscious of all, there is no other, and so no interdependence, and therefore perfectly blissful. The attainment of this freedom is proclaimed as the purpose of life, an objective quite reasonable, an aspiration quite laudable. In mundane terms, its attainment bestows a bonus of sorts, as the objective, aspiration, and want for freedom themselves become meaningless. But at the lower realms, there is this constant need for acknowledgement of one's achievements from others. It is absolutely imperative to rise in stature in the eyes of others, to rise in one's own. The extolling of gods as doers of the extraordinary is a projection of this propensity upon the immortals, for they are free of this mortal necessity, and which in itself is an extraordinary trait. Perhaps the exercise of extolling gods is a well thought out scheme of Vedic composers to highlight this frailty of mortals without mind shaming them, that being the mode of expression and the intent of the Sanskritam language. That having been said, the clockwork precision by which existence works and the universe progresses makes its regulator Indra as well as all the other natural forces indeed extraordinary doers. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 7.
ये वासु मासवे भरयज्ञश्रियम् प्रमादनम् अदयन्वन्दयत्सकम्.
Now, surely do bring quickly promotion of sacrifice for quick gladdening of your personified self. Do cause it to fly to rejoicing friend. The ways of mortals and immortals. To err is mortal, and an error is an expression of mortal limitations. Further, such expressions that originate from the constraints upon mortals is a vital component in the composition of the script of existence and its enactment. The Rigveda can be considered a coded articulation of nature imbibed by mortals, but upon the fact that it has bounced off mortals, it becomes susceptible to their error-prone ways to an extent. One such miscued notion is that of the drunkenness of the gods. In most instances, at the mundane plane, intoxicant-induced stupor leads to inefficiency and aberrant behavior, while at the supramundane, the worst that could happen is a state of excitation leading to perhaps better efficiency and possibly better results from the mortal perspective. Exceptions to this generalized portrayal can be justified as mistakes of mistakes in the mundane and as non-applicable in its complementary plane. This verse is probably a presentation of this recountal, albeit in a manner that is neither critical of mortals or immortals. The failing of mortals of deeply nestling truth in emotions and projecting them upon every entity they deal with is seen as an unavoidable compulsion and so not a culpable offense. It is merely their way of living, just as dispassionate activity is the way of the immortals. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 8.
अस्य पीत्वा शतक्रतो घनो वृत्राणामभवः प्रावो वाजेषु वाजिनम्
Being drunk with this, doer of actions multitude, you became the compactor of the clouds of darkness upon plenitudes towards promoted power of truth. Light and darkness, dependent opposites. By definition, Indra represents the brilliance of order. Lightning is his weapon, and he is equated with the sun, both being considered regulators of their respective realms. Duality stipulates that there must exist an opposite to every object or notion, whether real or imaginary. So, the absence of light becomes darkness and its personification, Vritra. Both Indra and Vritra need each other to perform their defined assignments. They are neither good nor bad, just dependent opposites in duality. The culpability and scope of that discrimination being the privilege of beings that are either definitely benefited or adversely affected by one or the other. For humans and those other life forms in whom vision performs the primary role of sensing the environment, light becomes an epitome of virtue. For nocturnal beings, darkness provides the ideal stage for their activities, light being an embodiment of evil. As Vedic thought is a construct of or routed through human minds, it is understandable that they extol light and fear darkness. But it must be said to the credit of the Vedic narratives that they leave sufficient hints around to the fact that the two are dependent opposites. The legend of Samudra Manthanam being one such, where the Devas represent light and the Asuras darkness, and without either, the narrative has no value or significance. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 9.
तम् पावाजेषु वाजिनम् वाजयामः सदक्रतो घनानामिन्द्रसातये
This you, doer of actions, multitude, swift and strong, Indra, we move upon your strengths for acquisition of riches. Vedas and the isms of the world. The stark distinction and absolute disproportionality between what is truly ours and that we claim ownership of is impressed upon in this verse. That which is truly ours, bestowed upon all mortals in abundance by nature, with the connivance of the natural forces or gods, that belongs to every being individually and collectively, originates from the expressions of the five principles and eight generic substances, Panchabhuta and Ashtavasu, with or without an understanding of the truth about their properties and functions. Moving amongst plenitudes does not restrict partaking of it as well in any manner. There is an implicit and intrinsic sense of cooperation and accommodation in the process. Acquisition of riches disproportionately to the detriment of others, on the other hand, fans tendencies that generate envy, animosity, and worse, that destroy balance and peace. One stimulates a sense of freedom, subject to existential limitations and decorum in the business of life, while the other promotes bondage and its associated indignities. Every action by mortals, urged on by the states of stimulation induced by their approach to the matter of plenitudes and their handling, must and will have a proportional consequence. The doers of action's multitude, the immortals, blissfully go about their tasks, perhaps factoring in these proportionate consequences as well. Vedic thought seems to take the best of every ism that has ever been and presents a comprehensive collective that describes existence to its last detail. Or maybe it is the other way around. The Vedas being the oldest known compendium of thoughts, the isms of the world having sprung up by highlighting and disproportionately dwelling on a particular set of truths of this Vedic compendium. Mandalam 1, Suktam 4, Rik 10.
यो राजो ओमनिर्महान् सुबालस्त्वम् वतस्तखा तस्मादिन्द्राय गायत.
Who is mighty river of wealth, easy to be crossed, companion of the one who prepares Soma offering? Do sing to this, Indra. The path of knowledge and the path of devotion. If the focus of discussion is upon the ease of crossing the river of wealth and go beyond, it would appear that the substance of this verse is likely that wealth in whatever form, material or notional, is a double-edged sword that can also harm its possessor. It is the acceptance of the limitations applicable to mortals with full understanding of the need for it in the larger scheme of things of the universe that helps them cross this mighty lure of wealth and check the unsatiable urge to acquire it unlimitedly. It is not that Indra or any of the other gods need to be our constant companion to impose this acceptance. They are omnipresent and are everywhere, always. The onus is upon mortals to understand and become wise to the significance of their presence and the restrictions they establish, and also visualize consequences if they do so or do not. Implicit acceptance and recitation of Vedic hymns under the presumption that they are indeed words of wisdom is the path of devotion. Understanding their true import and their reflection upon physical and mental processes and accepting them upon such conviction is the path of knowledge. Both lead to freedom and are ideal for such mortals who are comfortable with each of them respectively, the horses choosing their courses. Vedic hymns provide one standard course for both breeds of horses to sprint across its tracks at their own innate paces. This is the perspective of mortals. Wonder what it would be from the viewpoint of the immortals, or at least the personified ones, a viewpoint that must ideally be on the periphery of or outside of the limits of the unbounded infinite universe. But will they have or need one at all?